Hello, I'm Felicity Cohen. I'm so excited to introduce you to my Wellness Warriors podcast. For over 20 years, I've been a passionate advocate for helping thousands of Australians find solutions to treating obesity and health-related complications through surgical intervention and holistic managed care. My podcast is dedicated to all the people, past, present and future, who have helped shape my journey and continue to inspire me to work consistently to achieve a healthier Australia in both adults and future generations. I hope you enjoy it. Today I'm very excited to introduce you to Georgia Lane. Georgia is the founder and president of Women of Influence. And I first became connected with Georgia because Weight Loss Solutions Australia sponsored one of her events just recently. And I was so impressed with the whole Women of Influence message, teaching women how to connect and to grow through their connection as women on a platform that's fascinating to see this style of interaction with women locally. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to bring Georgia on today. And I'd like to start by just saying hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you.
So first of all, in your professional career, what are some of the things that have led you towards growing the Women of Influence concept?
Oh, interesting. Many years ago, so Women of Influence has been running for 15 years now. There were a group of ladies and myself in the financial services industry on the Gold Coast, and the Gold Coast is a very spread out, there's no CBD as such, it's a very spread out area. And unlike, I guess, the big cities like Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane, there weren't back then a lot of events that were connecting business women. So we decided to get together and put on some professional events. And now these days, our event coming in a couple of weeks' time will sell out at probably 300 guests.
I had no idea that it had been running for 15 years. That's actually incredible, and the growth has been amazing.
Thank you.
So let's just cast you back to your career working in the financial services industry in a marketing professional role. What are some of the things that you learnt or have learnt over the years that you've kind of taken from that and implemented into how you've grown the concept of Women of Influence?
Sure. My background is marketing. Initially in telecommunications and IT, but then financial services for the last few decades. One of the things I've learned and love about marketing is communication and connecting. So that's pretty much what I guess Women of Influence is all about. Our mantra is connect, learn and grow. And I love finding a great speaker or somebody who's quite topical and can share something valuable with our audience, and then putting that out there and letting people know what we'll be sharing with them, what they'll learn, and bringing people along to the events. But also at the events, I love that people connect and meet other people who are like-minded. So I guess that all goes in the whole, marketing, communication and connection program in my background.
Do you think that women entrepreneurs and those in business here on the Gold Coast or in general, were they previously disconnected or didn't have an opportunity to engage? Was it specific to women that you picked up on that? What were some of the things that you found were struggles for women in business?
It was that we didn't have any business events as such where women could get together. It was non-threatening, it wasn't a salesy environment. It was purely just meeting other like-minded women. It wasn't, while many of our guests and committee members are mums, it wasn't about that. It's about our careers, it's about growing as people, as individuals, about challenging ourselves and learning and motivating each other. And there just wasn't anything like that. Men had golf and a lot of sportsmen's lunches and things like that. And 15 years ago, women didn't have anything. There's a lot more these days, but there's plenty of room for all of us.
Definitely. What are some of the struggles that you see that women have if they're solo entrepreneurs or running businesses or just trying to find that whole work-life balance? There's a lot of challenges that I think women face. What are some of the challenges that you felt you've faced over the years that you've also kind of brought into your whole concept around Women of Influence?
Sure. I think it's, we tend to, have such a huge mental load. We tend to be multitasking so much, and you know, there's that old saying and that movie, I don't know how she does it. It is true, you know, sometimes we do tend to overload ourselves a little bit, and when we get to that point when we're giving so much to other people, it's good to stop and just take stock, or perhaps even just go and talk to another woman and say, you know, how are you coping, how are you going? And it's nice, it's kind of nice to see that other women are going through the same struggles, but also, you know, to support each other and say, you know, take a breath, look after yourself as well, here's how I did it. They're all the things that we tend to do at Women of Influence, is sharing stories and support for each other.
I think that support is really critical in business, finding not just mentorship but also other like-minded people to connect with. So tell me a little bit about the mantra of the connect, learn, grow, and how did those 3 pillars come together for you?
So they've changed over the years, not a great deal, but we used to, for example, use networking as one of our words, and we don't do that anymore. We've changed it now to connect instead of network. And that was one of the things that we've found that people coming to our events really, really love, is that, sure, we always make sure that we have a fantastic speaker and somebody that they can learn from, which is part of the mantra as well. And that by learning, we're then growing, which is another part of our mantra. But it was the connect that people keep talking about, the fact that they can come to our events and meet someone, like, you know, we've connected through the events.
Absolutely.
And now we can talk to each other, we can pick up the phone and have a conversation about whatever you're doing in your life at the moment. And I think that's just the most important thing. That's what, you know, we're really about, and what we're trying to continue is that connection.
I really see the value in that, and I think it is so important for women to connect, but also to feel as though they're involved in a situation where they can take time out of their working lives to really explore that a lot further, and to feel as though they're supported and connecting in a space that's comfortable for them to meet with like-minded people. So really valuable to find that opportunity, and congratulations on growing this over 15 years. I think it's incredible.
Thank you.
And I think really important for women to have that opportunity to feel more empowered in their lives. And I do see it as being part of a self-care philosophy, because so much I feel we all get so caught up that we don't take the time out. And even for me to say, okay, I'm going to reserve the time to attend one of your events, it's not that easy, but so valuable. And so I think time management as well comes into making the most of allowing yourself that opportunity as well, and part of that self-care philosophy. How do you see, and how do you kind of take on board self-care firstly for yourself? What does that look like?
I think one of the things, as I was saying before, about the mental load and us doing too much and taking on too much, that's our nature as women and mums. I think one of the first things that comes very much through Women of Influence and the connections that we've created there are just meeting other women and leaning on other people. I think that's a really important thing about taking care of yourself. So, for example, the committee on Women of Influence, they're amazing, and I've made so many friends that will be lifelong friends, and the support that they give us through, you know, putting together these events. If I didn't have those friends, you know, if I didn't have them to call or text or go and have a drink with, or, you know, just take some time together, and they're also the ones that pull me up and say, you know, hey, you know, take some time, or look after yourself better, or you know, let's go for a walk or do some exercise. So I think that would have to be the big thing, is looking out for each other, but also, I guess, leaning on your friends and colleagues a little bit more.
It's about building community as well, not just connecting, but building that whole sense of community. And I think that's what you're doing, not just with your committee. And I do the same thing. My staff together, we do a boot camp session every Wednesday morning. And I think that's really valuable for us to connect as a team, to do things together, take ourselves outside of the office environment. So growing community for me is about not just with my team, but also with our patient population. I'm really big on how we drive a community. And for you, obviously, that's been important, I think, for you and your team, but also in what you're sharing with the community that you're growing.
Very much. I know it's not a traditional answer, I suppose. By asking that question, maybe it's about my own fitness regime or health. And true, I've got a lot of things that I do there, but I do think that growing and learning that leaning on the community and also having girlfriends that you do things with, like you said, doing boot camp, it's something that you're held to.
Yeah.
And so I've got friends that I go walking with, or I go to yoga with, or we hold each other accountable for diets, or eating well and not going out and having too many drinks and things like that. That's all part of the community.
Oh, I love that, and I love that sense of accountability and how that can be a purpose or something that drives you through different pillars of your organisation. So really valuable as well to learn to have accountability. It makes you a better person, definitely, and function better.
So true.
So some of the things that you've learned about women as professionals, as entrepreneurs, and some of the challenges that might have been around 15 years ago that are not there today, what are some of the things that you see that have changed over time for women?
I think women are a lot more supportive of each other these days. You don't see many situations where women are taking down other women. The tall poppy syndrome doesn't seem as prevalent these days. There seems to be a lot more celebration when a woman succeeds, and there's a lot more women supporting women. There are a lot more, as I said, there's many more groups of women's organisations like ours these days, whereas 15 years ago it was pretty much just us. So I think that would be the biggest thing, and I think men are becoming more aware too that it is important to support women, because we're not saying that we're better, we're just saying we're different. So in large or small organisations it's good to have a mix. So I think that would be the biggest thing, is that there is more support around.
When you talk about women of influence, what is it that you see? Talk to me about the ultimate woman of influence. What does she look like and who is she? Describe her for me.
She's someone who wants to challenge herself. So all of the ladies on our committee, we all have careers and families to look after. So we're already really busy, and a lot of the women are successful in their own careers. But we decide that we want to do something extra. And so we challenge ourselves, and the events are challenging, but we enjoy them, and we're motivated, and we love the post-event euphoria. We love putting on great events that connect people and seeing, what that brings for people, and we love giving back. So we raise money for Radfly, which is a local charity. I guess that's the woman of influence that I picture is my committee members. Women who are successful in their own way, but are also wanting to do more, challenge themselves, learn and give back.
Having a sense of service as well. I love the giving back and also being involved in something that's philanthropic,
yes.
That has a purpose in terms of how we can give back and also set the scene for future generations. So I think that's really powerful as well. As a mum, what you're doing is having an influence on your own family and on your children, but also on multiple others as well.
Definitely. Yeah, my daughter and my son comes to a lot of events, but my daughter is a committee member, and she has an official job at all of the events. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
Beautiful. Do you think sometimes as women that that load of being too busy, are we too busy?
Yeah, I think it is in our nature that we do just take on so much, and naturally, outside of having careers, we do tend to take on the load of the family, cooking, cleaning, organising the household, and because it's in our nature, we bear the children, they tend to naturally come to us. So we do tend to do that, I guess, in the first instance.
Yeah.
And years ago we had a speaker who called it the burnt chop syndrome, where at a barbecue we tend to keep the burnt chop ourselves and give all the good ones to everyone else. So we do tend to look after everybody else first before we look after our own needs. So yeah, we are busy.
That is typically the nurturing side of any women, I think, that we do focus on everybody else before ourselves, whether it's in business and you're managing a team, and or at home with your children, that we often put ourselves last. How do we need to find the right balance, and what is it that you do for yourself to actually execute that?
I think just finding that space and being a little bit deliberate, even diarising time to exercise, for making habits for yourself. So every day I wake up at the same time and I immediately go for a walk. My dog's waiting outside my door ready to go, so I'm accountable for that. But I also am wary of making sure that I fit in something for myself each day. And even if I've got a million things going on, just taking that time to step away, because I do find that if you step away and just give yourself a little bit of space, that's actually when ideas come. And it just frees yourself up. Whereas if you're going, you're not always doing your best work. And another thing would be focusing. So not trying to do too many things at once, not multitasking. It is in our nature to multitask, but if we need to do something that's quite important, to really focus on that. Because if we don't, then you don't really, nothing gets your A game. You know, nothing is done really, really well. So that's something, and I haven't always been that way. I've learned to do that over time.
I completely agree, and I learnt that recently myself because I had a forced day off. I actually had a minor surgical procedure, but what that taught me was the day off was actually time to think and create. And I think your creativity really comes out a lot more when you allow yourself the space and the time to just be outside of your office environment or your workspace and then come up with new ideas that you can then implement. What about fitting in family, relationships, a husband? How does that all look for you? Yeah, it is. It can be challenging. I guess you have to prioritise and, you know, not only do the things that everybody wants you to do, say no to the ones that are not important and understand what your priorities are. And of course it starts with your little family unit is your number one priority. But it's also important to make sure that the people who really, you know, that you really love spending time with, your friends, that you make time for them too. And I'm a big list doer, and I am a little bit organised, so I do put things in my diary and write a lot of things down. I've always got a notebook in my handbag, so I know I can check back in and work out what my priorities are. So yeah, that's how I guess I make sure that enough time is given where it's got to go. And being, you know, mindful of when the kids come to you and want to talk to you, you know, just put the phone down and focus on them. And even just having days without the phone at all, without any devices. I think that's really important for everybody to get off your devices and make that time a committed moment in your day, whether it's at dinner time, when you're sitting around the table with your family, whatever that looks like, that's the focus. And bringing back that family centre of connection, I think, is so valuable as well. What about with your husband? Do you take time out for date nights, time for yourselves? How do you manage that?
We don't do a lot of date nights, I must admit, but we will quite often take ourselves off just for a whole night. So get away, stay at a hotel somewhere, and we've also got a property down in northern New South Wales, so we might just go down there and just connect, so we can actually have a whole, you know, afternoon, night, and morning just to chat about things and spend some time together. Which I would really recommend that to any couple. It's just so important to do that, and no specific agenda or anything. Just having time to remember why you got together in the first place. You know, just talking and having fun. So yes, we do that. Probably not as much as we should at the moment, but generally every couple of months we'll do that.
And your children are what ages now?
10 and 14.
And what do you think are some of the most significant challenges that our kids are faced with today?
Definitely social media. You know, my daughter's 14, and just the amount of curated content that's out there and the amount of bullying that can go on social media can have a huge impact if you're not, if you don't know you're loved and that you're not really confident in yourself. It can be really tough. My daughter's, you know, learned a couple of hard lessons, but thankfully they've been pretty benign, and I think she's well set to, you know, to go out there with confidence and be her own person, and know, you know, what not to do now, hopefully. But I think that that's probably the biggest thing. It can be such a hard thing for young people to see all these perfect people on social media, but also, you know, anything you do can be so brought down so quickly by these trolls, just by people who are just mean. So I think just being kind, you know, is so important.
It's a frightening thought to think that the social media is having that kind of impact on our children. So managing that as a parent and how you influence, you know, the dissemination of information, what they have access to and how they respond to it is a really significant role to play as a parent.
It is, yes, how they respond. And yeah, as I said, knowing that they're loved and having that confidence to be themselves. But to know, if anything, that they're good friends and their family love them. So that's the most important thing.
Absolutely agree. Love that. So let's talk a little bit about your own health journey. So you've lived on the Gold Coast all of your life? Or?
I was actually born in Sydney.
Oh, you were born in
Yes,
Sydney. Okay.
Yes.
And at what stage did you move up here?
My parents moved us here. I lived in America for a little while with Mum and Dad, and then we came here when I was about 10. I went to school here, and then I went back to Sydney for my career. Met my husband, and we decided to come back here, I think it was nearly 20 years ago. And we've stayed here ever since. Love it, on the Gold Coast. So yeah.
That's around about the same time as I moved here. So I've lived here for, this is my 21st year in business, here on the Gold Coast. So I moved here just right on the cusp of the year 2000.
Okay, yes, we were a little bit after that.
And yeah, having my 21st year celebration at the end of the year, so you're going to have to come to that. I've decided it's going to be a big 21st birthday party.
Oh, fun.
21 years on the Gold Coast. So tell me a little bit about your health journey and what are some of the challenges that you faced in life?
I guess starting my career in Sydney, it was full on, but I loved it. I mean, I love the city, and I do still love Sydney. I was in big corporate, so some of the organisations I worked for, Microsoft, Telstra, Toshiba, doing marketing and sales for them. And then we decided to move to the Gold Coast, and I was amazed how different it was here. For the first 6 months, you know, I was twiddling my thumbs working out what to do, and that's when I got into running and fitness a little bit more, whereas when I was in Sydney it was all about work. In saying that, I am, you know, quite driven career-wise, and I was back in corporate, so I ended up in financial services, and I was working for some big banks in Brisbane, and also travelling a lot. By this time, 2 children, and you know, I was travelling. I was driving to Brisbane from the Gold Coast every day. We had au pairs living in, looking after the kids, and it was all a bit crazy. And I think I had a bit of a wake up, which I'm very, very grateful for. In 2014, you know, I was in big corporate. I was just about to travel to Shanghai to present at a big conference, and I was going to see the doctor for whatever you needed to go to China, and I'd felt the night before a lump in my breast, and I was going to see the doctor, and she's, you know, what are you here for, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, I've just found this little lump. Can you just check it out? I'm sure it's nothing. Anyway, long story short, it was actually breast cancer. So I found out when I was driving down the M1. I got the call after I'd had a, what's it called, a biopsy. And they told me, you've got breast cancer. I'm like, oh, okay, can I still go to the conference? Like, no, it's life-threatening. You've got to just stop everything. So yeah, I just didn't expect it. Wasn't in the plan. All of a sudden, I had a surgery, a lumpectomy. I had chemotherapy, radiography. So pretty much 12 months of my life, everything changed. I'm very pleased to say that, you know, I'm very healthy now.
You look the picture of health and absolutely stunning.
Thank you. Thank you, Felicity. But I do say very much hand on heart that it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, to be honest, Felicity. I was, you know, living this huge corporate life. I wasn't even there for my family. You know, nanny's looking after the kids. I was travelling. I was driving to Brisbane every day, leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting home late. And what for? And this just stopped me in my tracks. And all of a sudden, I really, you face death and you realise what's important. So yeah, I changed my life after that.
Totally taking on board all of the things that are the most important values for you in life, and I can so get how life-changing that is. So and how I relate to your story similarly. When I was pregnant with my first child, I was living in Paris and discovered a breast lump and had to have surgery in Paris pregnant, which was not much fun. I had my parents with me at the time and told them it was just no big deal. It was just day surgery and they could go home. That was the worst decision I ever made. But anyway, so it is a huge wake-up call for anybody, I think, going through that health scare. It's a shock to your system. And even with nannies and au pairs, I know for me personally, when you're working so hard and long hours and you're growing a business, I actually resented having to pay to have care for my children, but you can't split yourself in two. And I think you do learn a lot about the busyness of life.
Yes.
And, reevaluating those personal value systems and how to prioritise your health, your family, and how work-life balance kind of changes overnight as well.
So true. I think stress too.
Yeah.
When I look back, it was not just not looking after myself. It was the stress. Yeah, so I was doing a lot of things. There were other things going on in my life that I was, just not looking after myself mentally and taking that time. And so I'm very conscious of that these days as well, and doing things like moving every day and eating well and doing things you love and spending time with your loved ones that gives you joy and reduces stress is hugely important. I really think that, the type of breast cancer I had was triple negative, which they say is caused by stress, and they say it can grow very rapidly. It could have come up literally in a month. So you've just got to look after yourself, don't you?
Reducing your stress levels, being mindful. What are some of your mindfulness practices that you put into place that help you with stress management now?
I love yoga. So I commit myself to doing yoga a couple of times a week. I do have a podcast, not a podcast, an app that I listen to do meditation. I listen to podcasts as well, a lot of them, and so
great. Great to listen to when you're going for walks, walking the dog, and I love that you've got a dog to walk as well. That helps you be accountable too. When you've got to wake up in the morning and the dog's on your doorstep, of course you've got to go out and walk, which is awesome. I love that. But do you listen to podcasts when you're out walking?
I do.
Yeah, perfect.
Sometimes I don't. I do find, because I love listening to business podcasts. These days I'm trying to listen to a little bit more, wellness podcasts or books, or whereas if I listen to too much business stuff, I'm wanting to do everything, and so I'm sort of more winding myself up. So I'm more enjoying listening to something that is a little bit different. So something that I can laugh at or learn from in a different way.
I love that, and I think we're a lot more focused now on management of our health as being so important, and what wellness looks like for a lot of people is different. But I love yoga. I think the yoga, the meditation, the walking, they're life-changing things that you can bring into your life, and I think they do help you become centered and grounded and focused, and to function better and improve your productivity. So I'm a bit like you too. I'm an alarm person. I get up very early in the morning. And I love running. Do you still run?
Not so much. So I was actually training for a triathlon when I was diagnosed, and I haven't gone back. I do tend to stick to walking and yoga and Pilates and things these days, but I'm not saying never. I might pick it up again. I always loved running.
So you're a little bit more gentle on yourself.
Correct. Yes.
Fabulous. Well, I have absolutely loved chatting to you today, and I'm really excited to be involved with your Women of Influence program. I'm sorry I didn't hear about it 15 years ago, but there's a time and a place for everything.
Yes, that's right.
And I guess for everybody listening to our podcast, it'd be great if we can share for local Gold Coast people as well the details for Women of Influence, so that they can also have the opportunity to connect with you, and a wonderful organisation.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today, and hopefully we'll have another chat again soon.
Great, I'd love to.
Thanks, Felicity. Thank you for joining the Wellness Warriors podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you online with us. If you enjoyed the series, please leave your review, subscribe and follow, and we look forward to sharing many more stories with you in the future.